Here we are, out in the yard, looking towards the door. And if we look up above here, we can see the sign above the door. And you can see as well that the building is actually made of bluestones. And the bluestones are mostly rhyolite, some dolerite, some sandstone, and some bits and pieces of metamorphosed mudstone or shale as well. So it's a classic assemblage of bluestones, which is all very appropriate, of course. Right, let's go in and have a little look and see what we can see. This is the way in. The Bluestone Museum, the only one in the world, the only reputable one anyway. Okay, and then we're going inside here, and I'll just explain a little bit about what's here. Essentially, this is a good place to park up all my rocks, which I've been collecting as samples over 40 or 45 years of research into the bluestones, concentrating in this area of North Pembrokeshire. So I've just basically converted what used to be a candle museum into a bluestone museum, and come in and I'll just explain a little bit how it's all laid out. This is the first section of the display, looking at the science of the stones, different types of rocks. There's 30 or so different bluestone types that are found at Stonehenge. I'm talking about what the characteristics of the rocks actually are and where they occur in the landscape. Then we move around to looking at the story of the bluestones as it's developed, looking at the assorted villains who've been involved in the debate, some good ones and some bad ones, and just explaining who they are. Herbert Thomas, the guy who invented the story of the human transport of the bluestones, and then the two geologists, Richard Bevins and Rob Ixer, who've been doing a lot of recent research. Mike Parker Pearson, who is responsible, I suppose, for the recent promotion of the bluestone transport myth. And then two other people as well. This is Geoffrey Kellaway, who wrote a very influential article in the 70s, and Alwyn Williams Thorpe, who was one of the geologists as well, who has investigated the bluestones and come down very solidly on the side of the glacial transport hypothesis. And then coming around a little bit to look at the way in which the myth of the bluestones has been developed over the years. First of all, looking at the quarrying myth that's been very prominent in recent years, and then moving on to the way in which the sort of bolt-on myth has been developed, and that is the myth of the lost circle at Wine Mound, which is not very far away. We move around here a little bit and we can see a little bit about the way the story of the bluestone transport has developed into the myth of the immaculate or the perfect Stonehenge that we can see over there on the right. And here I'm explaining a little bit about how the myth of this lost circle at Wine Mound has developed. All of these sites, by the way, the so-called quarrying sites at Rossavelin and Carngoedog and Wine Mound, which is where the lost circle is supposed to have been located, these are all very close to where we live. So luckily I know these sites pretty well. Right, so that's developing those components of the story, looking at the archaeologist's view of things, shall we say, looking at the human transport myth and the quarrying myth and the lost circle myth. And then coming around onto the other side, we're moving into the glacial theory. It is, as I say up there, it's a classic scientific dispute really that's going on. It would be nice if some of the archaeologists would actually accept that there is a dispute going on, but they seem to prefer to live in a state of permanent denial, but never mind. And then moving around to the glacial theory here, talking first of all about the I've got some mention here of this new erratic that's been found in Mumbles, and then on this side I've actually got some displays about the work of ice, how glaciers erode, how they pick up material and move it around, and then over on the further along I'm coming into the what happened during the Ice Age, what the big events of the Ice Age were, and how the movement of ice in the western part of the British Isles is now fairly well established. And looking in at this map here, showing the ice, as I think, approaching fairly close to Stonehenge. I'm not quite sure whether it actually reached Stonehenge. That's still a matter dispute and debate. And there's a little bit more here about the glaciation, the type of erratics and so on that have been used. And then I look at the bottom here at the way in which the argument has developed, and I take the view very strongly that Occam's razor comes into play. In other words, if you've got two hypotheses, go for the simplest one, because until you can prove that that one is wrong, that's the one you might as well accept. And then I've got lots of other little bits and pieces here, the stones themselves. I got spotted dolerite, unspotted dolerite, rhyolite, like the stone that's been found at Rosabellin. Volcanic ashes, which are also fairly common in this area. There are a few of those at Stonehenge as well. Some sandstones as well. And then we've got various other rock types as well that are found in the Stonehenge collection of fragments and little bits and pieces lying around in the landscape. And then I say a little bit more about some of these other rock types as well, and some of the characteristics of glacial deposits. First of all, looking at the huge variety of erratics that we find on Pembrokeshire beaches and so on. Looking at glacial deposits here as well, the Irish Sea till, sands and gravels, and periglacial deposits as well. Looking also at erratic pebbles as we found them, and then a little bit more about some of the gravels that are found in other places as well, and what their characteristics are when they've actually been carried around by ice. So that's about it. It's a fairly small museum. It's just you could fit a car in here, and that's about all, and a few people at a time. But we are open, and if anybody wants to pop in, we're open quite a lot of the time. We close when we feel like, and we open when we feel like. But if you want to come from a long way away, just give a ring to check that we're here, and we'd be very happy to open up and let you have a look around without any charge. And it'd be nice to have a chat with anybody who's got any queries. Okay, thank you for watching. That's my little introduction.